Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my name is Dr. Ian Phillips, and today we're going to be talking about how Donald Trump is now going to be hosting an event that costs about $60 million to host on a White House lawn. And that is going to be that UFC event that has been so talked about here for the last couple years now, it feels like. I mean, maybe it's been a little bit longer than that even. It feels like forever ago they've been talking about this White House event. Everybody was always curious who's going to be fighting, who's not going to be fighting, what is this going to be like. Everybody wants to be on that card. And you know me, I'm excited, man. I love combat sports. To me, this is something that I'd like to see grow more in popularity. And to take a play out of Rome's handbook here, Donald Trump is saying, bread and circuses, baby. We're going to keep the people happy with some entertainment, right? Circuses got your entertainment. Now, I don't know if he's going to give them any bread. In fact, he's taken away a lot of bread from a lot of people. But at least he's going to embody the circuses element of this. And so I actually think this is a good thing for the morale in the country. But having said that, though, you can see if you look very closer, they're whispering, healthcare, please, right? Because we can't have nothing good in this country. But it's relatively interesting. And so I wanted to get my take on it here today. Basically, there was an article here from AP I seen, and it says that Donald Trump is obviously going to be hosting this event that costs about $60 million. Now, the UFC is actually going to be paying for most of this here, as well as some other little groups who are coming together. And so most of the costs are not actually coming from taxpayers. So that's something that you see floating around saying this is taxpayer funded. That is not true at all. But what is true is that there is 7 federal agencies, people like Homeland Security, for example, who are going to be there, and they're going to be using some of their, their basic resources as well as staffing, some manpower, to sort of help, let this event run smoothly, right? Because this is going to be a huge event here. I mean, we're talking about an actual UFC event on the White House lawn, which is kind of insane to say. Now, some people are going to say that's a bad PR move. Look, we got one of the most powerful countries on the planet, and they're having literally UFC death matches here on the front lawn. Maybe not a death match per se, but you get the sentiment of it. They're like, that's kind of crazy for PR. To me, I don't see nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do see something wrong with that. See, if I were president, this is something that I would do. Now, would it cost $60 million? Nah, bro. Just get a ring, get some security, you're good to go, and just, start hosting this stuff, right? But I don't think it has to cost $60 million now. But I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, I don't even think this has to cost more than a couple $100,000. But, people, and they got their own way of doing stuff, I guess. So $60 million is crazy, but to me, it doesn't matter because the United States taxpayers are not paying that. We're just using manpower. So be it, right? There's the circuses. You can make Americans happy in some way, shape, or form, right? It's just like the emperors back in Rome. They used to say bread and circuses. Keep the people fed, keep them entertained, and they're not going to rise up against you because the conditions in your country are so poor. So this is actually one of the things I like most about it. So obviously, I'm extremely critical of Trump. I critique. You look at hundreds of videos critiquing him on almost everything he does. The guy can't even breathe properly without me critiquing this guy. But this is something that I actually do think is a generally a good idea. And sadly, though, it's probably going to help his cause a little bit. People are going to like this. But, some people will seek to hate on it. This is going to be one of the biggest sporting events of all time, I think. This is going to be like Super Bowl level type shit. So with that said, what are some of the other downsides that are or things that people are talking about with this? Well, there was a lawsuit here from the National Park Service claiming that the authorization of this event is violating regulations, service regulations that are prohibiting sporting events on federal parklands. So that's going to be being dealt out in court here. And there is a chance, actually, that this does get stopped here. And says this is if a judge doesn't halt the proceedings, which is sought by 2 Virginia residents in a federal lawsuit against the National Park Service, which oversees the South Lawn. And then it says the agency filed a rebuff on their request of Tuesday in court, and in it laid out the operations for the event. And that's how we know just how much this costs. And of course, this article here is from AP News from Jesse Bedayan. I don't know, guys. Kind of crazy here. All I'm saying is we should probably be doing a little bit more than just having the sporting events here, because that's one of the things that we, obviously everybody critiques in Rome and say, okay, well, why didn't people rise up for better conditions? Well, they were kind of content and happy, right? Because they got some entertainment, right? They're fed, and to them, that's the characteristics of a good life. But now you look at this country. I mean, I just went out to Buffalo Wild Wings tonight, right? Buffalo Wild Wings. Everybody loves beat-ups, right? And this literally for 7 mozzarella sticks and 15 chicken wings, traditional, It cost me $46, and that's with the tip included. But $46, bro? What? Like, I could go out to like Outback or Longhorn Steakhouse, and get like a giant porterhouse, and it'd be like the same price. So like, I'm not like, this is kind of crazy. People living in some very horrible times, and to say that this is what we need to be prioritizing. Yeah, I don't think that's what we need to be prioritizing per se here, man. I don't. But will this be good for the morale? I'm sure it probably will be. Do I have an issue with it? No, I do not, because I think the cost is too low. It's probably not going to cost more than a couple $100,000, on behalf of the taxpayers. And really, in terms of the federal budget, that's essentially negligible. That's essentially zero. That's essentially free, and it's going to be a huge event. And so, therefore, I don't necessarily see the issue with this. But there is an argument to be had. Why are we prioritizing doing stuff like this when we have people who are suffering in our country? I mean, for God's sake, the guy's lifting regulations on things like lead pipes, for instance. I mean, Jesus Christ. Dude, the dude just literally, this is like just the other day, right? This guy actually fired a bunch of the prosecutors in charge of looking at like corruption and whatnot in the country. So I mean, there's like so many like just crazy things that are going on right now, and yet if you say that, and somehow you're just like a crazy liberal. And so look, am I going to be siding with the people who say that like, yeah, like we need to not do this event here? No, we can do the event, but it's deeper than that, right? You can't do this event and then not do anything else in your country. That's when it becomes a problem. And so, I could side with them to some degree and say, yeah, like, we shouldn't do this. But it's like, but at this point, dude, ain't nothing changing in this country until this guy gets out of office and we get somebody like a Bernie Sanders in, not a Joe Biden, not a Kamala Harris, the corrupt prosecutor. None of these, until all of these type of people, 99% of Congress and 99% of these politicians in this cabinet, and Trump himself and his family and every single person who's involved in this entire complex of suppressing the American dream, until these people are taken out of power, and then the 1% that we like, the people who actually care about us, people like Mamdani or Bernie Sanders, until these type of people get into office, things are not going to be looking good for us, and that's just going to continue to be the case, I think, for quite a long time. So at the very least, if we can have a circus here and there, I'm not too pressed about it. But pluses and minuses to everything, right? You can't have one side of the coin without the other, right? The yin and the yang, right? So kind of crazy, bro. But I mean, just go on Twitter for 2 seconds to see a million other things that we should probably be doing instead. Like for example, like firing all federal employees tasked with prosecuting corruption. Matter of fact, I believe there was 36. I think now there's 2 lawyers, so it's not all 36, right? But kind of pretty bad. So with that said, guys, hopefully you did enjoy the video here. I could rant and rave all day. I just thought it was some interesting news that it's going to cost that much money. I was like, wow, it's kind of a little crazy to me. So hopefully we get a good fight out of this. Hopefully this is memorable, and the American people have a blast. But with that said, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. My name is Dr. Ian Phillips, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.